If you have a strange or scary story you'd like to hear on the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the big button to send it my way. Or you can send it to my email at astheravendreams@gmail.com. And of course, thank you. Hi, Raven. My dad used to kayak a lot in his young adult and teen years. He also led excursions and camp activities. On one occasion, he had kayaked somewhere with the plan to spend the night camping on the beach. While he was sleeping on the beach, he woke up in the middle of the night and saw a young girl pointing out at the water. He was alone at the time, and my sister and I were not born yet. Then she disappeared, and he went back to sleep thinking he was just tired or something like that. However, the next day, the ocean conditions were horrible. He had not expected a storm, and my dad does a ton of research before a trip. It was too dangerous to go out in the water. He believes that the girl was trying to warn him. The next scenario happened about a decade and a half later, when my mom was pregnant with my sister. My mom has given birth to 3 kids, and never wanted to know whether we were boys or girls before we were born. She likes to be surprised. Anyway, one night, a few months before my sister was born, my dad woke up to see that young girl again. The same one from the boating trip. This time, she was standing at the window, looking at him, and he could see her face. He said that she looked like me, but definitely not close enough to be me. Then, like before, she disappeared. When my sister was born later, and as she grew up, he realized that the girl was her. He's also never seen the ghost girl again since my sister's birth 21 years ago. My sister has had her own, quote, psychic dreams as well. A couple of times she predicted the deaths of people who have died suddenly the following day. Before my uncle had his heart attack, though, she dreamed that he would get sick, but he would be okay and recover. When he had his heart attack, he did die, but then was resuscitated. He was sick/weak for several months after, but completed rehab and is fine today. And that was 2 or 3 years ago, and the heart attack truly came out of nowhere. My uncle was an avid biker and only ate healthy meals. I also have a short glitch story that isn't long enough, but I'll share it anyways if you want to put it at the end of this. Growing up, I loved monkeys, gorillas, and orangutans. I would research them, read about them, buy stuffed animals of them, and visit them at the zoo. I was obsessed. One day, my mom and family friends took me and my sibling to the botanical gardens. They had a special rainforest exhibit with rainforest plants and golden lion tamarins. I loved seeing them and was so surprised that they were there. Years later, I brought up this memory to my mom and boyfriend at the time. They both said that the botanical gardens never had tamarins, only butterflies. However, I literally can picture in my head where in the exhibit room I saw one. I was so confused that I ended up calling the gardens. They said they don't and have never had tamarins. I have no idea where this memory came from then, because I distinctly remember seeing them and being so happy. I guess I'm just lucky to have a positive glitch experience, but I feel a little insane. Also, one other thing is when I typed golden lion tamarins in the Google search bar, those botanical gardens are an autofill choice that pops up, even though I haven't been to those gardens or that area in years since moving. Just another weird thing. I have some other stories, but these are the ones that I can share right now. Let me know if you want to hear the others. Hi, Raven. I've been binging your videos on YouTube. I enjoy the stories, and you do a great job reading. Thank you. I've experienced a lot of strange phenomena in my life. Everything from poltergeist activity to UFOs and lots of stuff in between. I wanted to share one of my experiences. I'm not sure if this qualifies as a glitch, but I'm unsure of how else to categorize it. The story may seem convoluted, but all the parts of the story do go together. I'm currently 54 years old. When I was around 7 or 8 back in the late 70s, I was at my late cousin's house playing in one of their rooms. My cousins were a little older. The boy was a year older than I was, and the girl was 3 years older. They told me that there was this game they had learned from their friends at school, and they wanted to try it on me. It was called Knockout. These days, there are lots of dangerous challenges and trends on social media that kids try, like Tide Pod, for instance. But these sort of things are not new. Even back in the 70s, we had our own reckless trends that spread around, albeit more slowly. It went like this. A person would count to 3, take a deep breath and hold it in. And then another person would stand behind them and pull in hard on their stomach, like a sort of Heimlich maneuver. This would cause a loss of consciousness. They had already tried it on each other, and it didn't work the way it was supposed to. They wanted to try it on me to see what would happen. It was dumb, but I agreed to do it because, at that age, I didn't see the possible danger. After all, they had already done it, and it didn't hurt them. So, I counted to 3, inhaled deeply, and held it. Then my oldest cousin put her arms around me and pulled in hard on my stomach. I was immediately somewhere else. Instead of my cousin's bedroom, I was in a small meadow. It didn't feel like a dream. It all seemed completely real. It was a sunny day. To my left, there was a tall hedge that went straight ahead into the distance. I couldn't see over it. The land sloped downward from the hedge so that the land was lower off to my right. The grass was green, and in the middle of the meadow was a mature, deciduous tree. It seemed completely natural for me to be there. I could not remember anything before then. I had no memory of my cousin's bedroom or of anything that had happened in my life up to that point. This place and this moment was all that I knew. I was standing near the long hedge, and I started walking. Ahead, I noticed there was an opening in the hedge, and I had a strong pull to walk through it. It felt like home was on the other side. As I approached the opening, I could hear distant voices and laughter behind me. They were muffled, and they sounded so far away that I almost couldn't make out what they were saying. "He's faking," they laughed. And then I heard my own voice say, "I'm not faking," in reply. Where I was in the meadow, I didn't actually speak or even think about speaking, and yet my own voice was speaking from someplace far away. Then, just as I was about to enter the opening in the hedge, I bumped into something. Suddenly, I was back in my cousin's bedroom, standing against his bunk beds. My cousins were laughing. I told them what had happened and where I had went, but they didn't believe me. They said that my eyes were open the whole time and that I had walked across the room arguing with them about faking. It was sort of like today when a person wears a VR headset and interacts with the virtual environment, all the while moving in the real world. I told my parents about it later, and they were alarmed that I had tried the game and warned me that I could have fallen and hit my head, and that I should never do it again. I thought about it a few times as I grew older and wondered if it was just a dream, or if I had entered a staging area for the afterlife, and maybe the opening in the hedge was a crossover door or something. A few years later, while playing basketball in high school, I witnessed a boy get knocked unconscious when he banged his head against the backboard. His eyes were wide open the whole time, and he was actively fighting the people who were trying to help him. Yet, after he came to, he said the last thing he remembered was jumping, and then he blacked out. After that, I just chalked up my experience as a normal thing that happens when a person is knocked out, eyes open and still moving around. But, later, I found out that my experience wasn't normal. Fast forward 30 years. My grandfather died in 2007, and I inherited his 5-acre homestead. My wife and I had 2 young children, and we'd been looking for a small piece of land to buy because we'd been living in the city, and we wanted our children to grow up out in the country as we had. City life didn't suit us. We wanted a big garden and chickens and all of that. My grandfather's place was perfect. He and my grandmother had purchased it for their retirement years, and it just so happened to connect to my parents' 12-acre property where I had grown up. My parents weren't farmers, but my dad loved horses and used their property as pasture for his and my uncle's 6 horses. When their neighbor's 5-acre and house was put on the market in the late 1980s, they helped my grandparents buy it. My grandmother died in 2006, and my grandfather followed a year later. They didn't have much money. My grandfather had grown most of their food with a garden, chickens, and a few pigs and a couple of cows. They lived simply but happily. My parents were next door, so my grandparents were looked after in their later years. When my wife, children, and I moved here, not only was this ready-made homestead a dream come true, but we were now close to my parents. So my kids grew up seeing their grandparents almost daily, which was good. This was a busy time for me. The land was a lot of work in itself, but I also had an evening teaching job at a local community center, as well as doing freelance graphic design jobs. 2 small kids were also a handful. I say all this because there were 2 acres of my property that were fenced off where my grandfather used to keep cows. It was completely neglected by me because I just didn't have the time. My dad asked if he could use that 2 acres to expand the pasture for his horses, and I agreed, because it was just too much for me to manage at that time in my life, and I had no cows to pasture it anyways. And since that 2 acres was fenced off and separate from the main lot, I ignored it. In fact, I can't even remember going out there more than twice the whole time that I owned it. For one thing, the fence was old and completely grown up with thick honeysuckle vines, wild roses, and wild cherry trees. I couldn't even see into the field during the warm months because the vegetation covering the fence was so dense and high. 14 more years pass. In 2021, my children were now old enough to look after themselves. I was laid off from my job and was going to take advantage of this extra time to focus on utilizing my homestead to grow more food. I told my dad that I was now ready to use that 2-acre lot, and that I planned to plant a small orchard out there, along with some other perennial food-producing plants. I'd been doing some reading about permaculture and food forests, and that field would be perfect for that. So we moved his horses. There was a gate at one end of the fence, but it was one of those wide livestock gates, and it didn't open and close very well, so I didn't like using it. Also, it was an inconvenient place for me. I wanted to keep the fence because all that vegetation engulfing it provided a wall of privacy for us from neighbors who lived on the other side of the field. I cut a 4-foot wide opening in the fence at the other end, so I could access the field at a more convenient spot. There were 2 young cherry trees on either side of the opening, and their branches made a natural arch over it, and the rest of the fence was dense vegetation. It kind of felt magical walking through it, like I was going to a secret garden. I went out into that field through my opening for the first time, and walked around to assess things, and plan where I would plant the fruit trees and berry bushes. I walked to the far end off to my right, and then turned and started back. I stopped dead in my tracks. I had never seen the field from this angle or perspective before. This was it. I was in the meadow that I had visited more than 40 years prior. To my left was the hedge, the fence overgrown with honeysuckle. The land sloped downward from the fence. The grass was green. And ahead to my right, in the middle of the field, was a lone oak tree. I slowly walked along the hedge toward the opening I had made to get in. My home was on the other side. My whole life, I had occasionally thought about what I experienced as a child, and wondered whether it had been a dream or if I'd had a near-death experience. But as I stood in my field in 2021, I wondered if I had experienced a moment in my future. When I was knocked unconscious in the 1970s, was my consciousness transported into the future at that moment and place in 2021 to see things through my older self's eyes? If so, why that particular moment? What made it so significant? Furthermore, was it even that moment at all? Since that day, I've stood and walked in that same spot many times. Was I perhaps seeing a time even further into the future when something significant would happen? The land has changed a little since then. There are now garden plots and little fruit trees out there, so it no longer looks exactly as it did when I saw it in my vision as a child, or when I saw it in 2021. This leads me to believe that the moment of realization in 2021 was the time. Yet, it seems like such an uneventful and unimportant thing to foresee. Okay, so the mind is very interesting. By the end of this, I'll tell you why I say that. The story isn't very long, but I'm laughing on the inside because I don't know what happened. It's nothing scary, but very much confusing. Lately, my son has been in summer camp. The hours are from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. My husband has to be at work at 2 p.m. and he gets off at 11. We only have one vehicle at the moment. This means that every day for the last 2 weeks, I've had to drop my son off at camp at 8 a.m., come home, sleep, clean, do whatever, and then drop my husband off at work at 2, and then pick my son up at 4, continue to do house duties such as cooking and cleaning, getting my 6-year-old ready for the next day, and etc., then pick my husband up at 11 p.m. Also, I have a very whiny and clingy toddler during the day as well. As you can imagine, I've been very exhausted. So last night, after a long day of what I've just described, I'm heading to pick up my husband from work. It's about a 20-minute drive from the house. On the way there, I saw a sign that said road work ahead, but it was on the opposite side of the expressway. I thought to myself how we'd probably run into it on our way back home, and didn't really think much about it because I wouldn't even be the one driving back home. My husband drives us back home when I pick him up. It was late too, so there wasn't much traffic on the other side of the expressway where the work was being done. I pick him up, we tell about our day. We're telling each other how exhausted we are and how we just want to go take showers and get in the bed. On our way home, traffic is light and normal. But then my husband accidentally gets off on the wrong exit. Our exit to get home is about 4 exits, or 15 minutes away from the one he got off on, so I'm like, why are you getting off on this exit? He's apologizing and started explaining how we just got confused. I chopped it up to exhaustion on his end. This is where the glitch happened. He starts to get back on the expressway to head home, but as we're coming down the ramp to get on the highway, we saw about a mile of traffic. Heavy traffic, due to the construction being done. It was what I had seen on my way to pick my husband up from work. There was a huge arrow telling cars to merge from left to right. So, from the median to the slower lane on the 3-lane expressway. We saw one of those bright lights, so the guys that were working on the road could see and we saw men out working. My husband and I were both instantly annoyed, but especially him because he was driving. I remember saying, "Oh yeah, I drove past this on my way here." He said, "This is BS. I just want to get home." I agreed. I pointed out how even though he accidentally took the wrong exit, off that same exit there was still a streetway we could have taken to get home to avoid the traffic we were seeing. It was too late though. We were already getting back on. We were having this conversation as we were driving down the ramp on the expressway to get into the slow lane. He merged onto the expressway and got behind a long line of slow-moving 18-wheelers. After about 10 seconds, he got over into the next lane and we started driving. At this point, we were driving just waiting to pass the road work, but we were stunned. And not only was there no traffic when we got out from behind the 18-wheeler, but there was no merge arrow, no big truck with a light on it to light up the expressway, and no workers. And we were like, huh? I said, "Now, wait a damn minute, what just happened? We saw all the traffic and everything. We both saw it. We complained about it. I even mentioned how traffic wasn't heavy on my way to pick him up. As we drove, I said, I just know we're going to drive past the road work being done." My husband laughed. He said, "No, it's gone. We would have passed it by now." I was confused. Yes, we were both exhausted, but traffic is traffic. No one wants to sit in it. We both saw it, only for it all to disappear. I couldn't believe it. The reason I say the mind is very interesting is because I'm pretty sure I've never experienced a glitch until now. I just started listening to your podcast a few months ago to take a break from my usual podcast, which is Dateline. I started on YouTube, and then now I'm on Apple Podcasts listening to your stories. I'm always intrigued by them, and when I'm not listening to them, I find myself thinking about things like, what if the Matrix steals my keys? Or what if I see the sky crack open? Only to see heavy traffic, lights, and workers disappear. Also, I thought to myself, yeah, these stories are interesting, but I don't think I want any of this stuff happening to me, because sometimes they're scary. Never thought I'd be submitting since I just like the stories. I know this isn't probably one of the most intriguing stories, and I hope this wasn't too confusing, but man, I think I'm good on glitch experiences. And thank you for reading, Raven. It seems to me that the more attention you pay to glitches, the more they will occur. Has anyone else noticed this? Until a couple of years ago, I might experience some sort of glitch every 8 to 12 months. Nowadays, they're happening more often and getting stranger and stranger. All three of these happenings happened within the last 3 weeks. First, I was walking through my dining room and stepped on something. I picked up a rather large piece of porcelain. Looking at its shape and size, it appeared to be a piece of a serving bowl. I fill my plate straight from the pots and pans I cook in. I don't use serving bowls. It's not the same color or paint scheme as my dishes either. Even though I know I haven't broken anything in a very long time, I checked every plate, saucer, cup, bowl, and baking dish that I own. Nothing I have is broken, and I have no idea where this piece came from. The second and third are identical glitches that happened a day apart from each other. First, I have to ask, has anyone ever happened upon a fly lying on its back, kicking its legs and flapping its wings trying to right itself? No? Me neither, until last week. I came across this spectacle on my kitchen counter. I grabbed a paper towel, got rid of it, and threw it in the trash, and then bleached the entire kitchen. Yes, I'm sure it died because it popped like a grape. The next day it happened again. Another fly on its back, kicking and flapping to right itself in the same exact spot on my kitchen counter. Again, paper towel, did the deed, throw away and bleach. I'm still shaking my head as it's just so bizarre. I don't know how much stranger things can get, and frankly I'm afraid to ask or find out. I hope you and patients are getting settled in nicely. You'll blink about 3 times and go, damn, I can't believe we've lived here 20 years. And yes, it does go by that fast. Best of luck to you both, and thanks. Thank you as well. Hi, Raven. I've been listening to your videos for a while now, and I never really shared what happened besides to my family. I'm from Brazil, but I've been living in the US for 10 years now. I used to live in a very small town in Brazil, and at 18 started going to college. The town only had one school bus that took all the college kids to a university, to the nearby town, and the distance was about 40 minutes to said university. Every day we would leave at 6 p.m. and come back around 11:40 p.m. The whole school year was uneventful, but one night something happened and I have no explanation for that. It was a normal night. We arrived at the bus stop at 11:40 p.m. as usual. I took 15 minutes to walk to my house, as usual, and got home right before midnight, again, as usual. When I got home, my family was already sleeping. Then I heated up some leftovers on the stove. We didn't have a microwave, and that my family had eaten that evening, just like any other day. I sat down on the couch with my plate and ate my dinner. When I finished, I took a glance at the clock and it was 2:25 a.m. My immediate thought was, this clock must be wrong. So I then checked my phone, and it really was 2:25 a.m. I'm confused to this day. I did not take 2.5 hours to eat my dinner. I ate it in less than 10 minutes. Yes, I'm a fast eater. I don't have any history of mental illness, no drugs or alcohol. But anyway, I went to bed and in the morning I told my mom what had happened, and she told me something interesting that I don't know what to make of. She said that my stepdad woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and he felt a strong smell of propane. He then went to the kitchen to check. When he got there, all of the knobs of the stove were on, leaking gas. He then opened all the doors to air out the house. The night before, right before I went to bed, I clearly remember that I checked the knobs to make sure they were off, because I did use the stove to heat up my food. But checking the knobs isn't something that I did back then, but on this particular day I did. They all looked good, and I went to bed. So I don't know how this whole ordeal could have happened. Where did the time go? And why were the stove knobs on? I don't want to believe that I was possessed because I don't even know if I believe that stuff, but I would love an explanation. Also, now I'm kind of a freak when it comes to stoves, and to this day, I will still check that I didn't leave anything on. Hi, longtime listener here, and you have read stories of mine before. Thank you for that, by the way. Now, this next story, I don't know if I should categorize it as a dream or a glitch. It's a precognitive dream that came true, and I posted it on Reddit on r/thetruthishhere. I thought it would be a good story for one of your videos because it's one of the most bizarre experiences I've had. So, here goes. I had this dream in 2021 of me holding the elevator door of my aunt's apartment in my college city and helping my mom transfer some empty boxes in order to be filled because, in the dream, my aunt was selling her apartment. I wore a fuchsia t-shirt, held a black jacket that was my mom's along with 2 other backpacks, both mine, a fabric shoulder bag that was my sister's, a supermarket plastic bag with a liter of Coca-Cola, and a water and a loaf of toast bread. In the dream, I remember seeing the door, my mom and my sister trying to empty the elevator so we could stop occupying it, and continue with me closing the apartment door, talking about how we don't want to say goodbye to the apartment, and the feel of hope that I will see the apartment again in the future, yet knowing it's kind of a false hope thing. Then, I woke up. I remember waking up, I felt horrified, stressed, and in relief realizing that my aunt's apartment was still in our family. I joined my aunt for the afternoon coffee in her room in our house. She used to commute between cities for a decade now, and during COVID lockdowns, and most days she would just stay with us. I tell her about the dream in good fun, finding it funny that I didn't have any mask's elastic band on my wrist like I did at the time, saying that either in my dream we cured COVID or I dreamed of a parallel universe's me's life. My aunt had sardonically chuckled, saying that she really wishes she didn't have to sell her home due to the family's financial struggles, and we were reassured that no such thing would happen, right? Cut to the early days of April 2025, my aunt tells the entire family she's selling the apartment and trying to find and buy some apartment or house in our hometown. We were floored. We instantly tried to help her both emotionally. She was devastated and she is diagnosed with depression, so we had to be extra careful, and physically. Our family are veterans of moving around. I've moved cities around 10 to 11 times by now, and I've changed homes 8 times by the age of 18. My dad was in the army while my mom and her sisters lived in Belgium, Sweden, and Greece. Growing up, they had moved a lot, and my aunt has helped us move quite a few times throughout the years. It's been a stressful and emotional month for all of us. and on the 27th of April 2025, at 7 p.m., my aunt sold her apartment. It was bittersweet. The mood that day for me personally was very bad. Cut to the 10th of May 2025, we visited the apartment one last time for the weekend, and also tied it to get some boxes my aunt wanted that she had left at her apartment. We then went to see a few family friends, and then go to a book convention downtown. And the dream became a reality as I was helping my mom and sister empty the elevator. It freaked me out, and I had a mini panic attack. It's not the first time that a dream has come true, but it was the first time a dream had come true that was something deeply personal and has affected me a lot. Other times it's small things like meeting a person, wearing an outfit, saying the words, or participating in conversation, eating something or watching something on TV, or listening to a song on the radio. I know this phenomena is called deja vu, but still, this specific dream, I would have been very happy if it didn't come true. I don't want to say goodbye to this house as I've known it my whole life. So, that's the event. Thank you for reading, and I hope you're doing well. Thank you for your time and your videos as they make my days and chores more enjoyable. Hello Raven, new subscriber, and I love your videos. The story is extremely short, I'm sorry, but I was sitting on the couch in my bedroom watching YouTube when I heard something fall in the living room. So I went to check, and the picture that I had on the wall fell due to a weakened hook. I had an e-cigarette in my hand, and I put it in my top pocket. I then bent over to pick up the picture, and my e-cig fell out while I was leaned over. So I picked that up too. As I was lifting myself back up, I felt something move in my pocket, so I put the picture on the table and put my hand in my pocket. And there, it was an e-cigarette exactly the same in my top left pocket. But I still had the e-cigarette that fell out in my hand. Did it duplicate? I have no idea. I've never had a glitch before, so I freaked out a little, and I've never mentioned this story before, so whoever can explain it, I would appreciate it. So, that, my friends, was a collection of some Glitch in the Matrix stories. It is Monday, so you knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen. We all knew it was going to happen. I hope. If you didn't, where have you been? Have you even been paying attention? Sheesh. Anyways, friends, that was a collection of some Glitch in the Matrix stories. Hopefully stories that you enjoyed. Stories that are weird, bizarre, and odd, and really highlight the broken pieces of our existence, if you will. If you did enjoy these stories, please hit that thumbs up button, the like button under the video. That'd be amazing. I'd appreciate that. You can also subscribe to the channel if you're new and liked the content that you heard and want more like this. I post frequently. You can listen to the podcast in longer formats on Spotify, Pandora, Audible, all the places you get your podcast fix. Doesn't matter where it is, you can find it. You can also go to astheravendreams.com to get all my social media links, the links for the aforementioned podcast, or click the big button on that website to submit your story. It's also a part where you can buy the book that I wrote, The Insomniac's Experiment. It's decent. I've read it. Anyways, you can also do a super thanks, which is a tip to the channel, or join Patreon, or hit the join button down below the video to get early access to content like this and other things that you may want access to. Yeah. Mondays, the other thing we do is what we call the word of the week. Last week, I gave you the word aberration, I think. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think it was aberration. And a good number of you commented up on the screen right now, and a few moments prior to this second in time, is a collection of all the comments from last week's Glitch in the Matrix video, who used the word of the week. All these people went above and beyond, and as always, I want to say thank you to each of them and highlight them on the screen. Thank you again. You are amazing. Now, aberration was a fun word to use. This week, it's even more fun. I love this word. The word of the week this week is ebullient. Ebullient. Ebullient means zestfully enthusiastic, or boiling or seeming to boil, bubbling. Merriam-Webster also categorizes it as meaning boiling/agitated. So if you're super angry, you can be ebullient. However, Cambridge also mentions that if you are energetic, positive, and happy, or excited and enthusiastic to an excessive degree, you are ebullient. So it's an interesting word that can actually mean overly happy and overly mad. So use ebullient in a sentence. Get featured on next week's Glitch in the Matrix stories. What was I trying to say there? Glitch in the Matrix stories. And yeah. Again, thank you to everyone who listens. And if you listen this far, you are amazing. Make sure you do give the video a like. And make sure as you're leaving your comments for the word of the week, you go and like other people's comments too. Maybe even have a conversation with them if you want. They may not be willing to talk, but if you are, you never know. Maybe you can open up a few doors and just chat with like-minded people. Form a community, if you will. All that said, friends, hope you're having a gorgeous week and hope I see you again here very soon. But until then, remember that you are loved, you are valid, you are important. You're the best you that you can be. Don't forget it, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Until next time, my friends, much love, and sleep well.